Hey all, and welcome back to the third HellfireComms Disneython. We hope you've been enjoying the marathon so far. Today we have another classic film for y'all. We're going to a very special book, a jungle-based book. Probably could have done that intro a wee bit more wittily, but hey, whatever. We don't do two takes anymore. Yes, we're going to be checking out the Jungle Book today, you know, with Mowgli and Bagheera and Baloo and Shere Khan, etc. Not the live-action one, the classic animated one. So, if you need any further information on how to sync our commentary to your copy of the movie, which obviously we can't provide for copyright reasons, etc., check the video description. Otherwise, we're just going to count you down into the film and talk over it until it is done. Such is the way of commentaries. Are you ready, Richie?
Of course I'm ready.
Let's do this shit. In 3, 2, 1. Good old Buena Vista. Alright, Richie, tell me a little bit about the Jungle Book, if you would.
Well, I mean, the main question is, which one? Are we talking about the film, the original Rudyard Kipling book, or what? Because there's plenty of Jungle Books over the years.
Obviously the Disney one, my friend.
Obviously. So, Jungle Book came out in 1967, based on Rudyard Kipling's book of the same name. It's the 19th animated feature film, directed by Wolfgang Reitherman, who directed quite a few Disney films over the years. So, I believe that his first role as director for a Disney film was 101 Dalmatians. And actually he directed most of the Dark Age era Disney films, arguably most of the decent Dark Age Disney era films. So he was director on 101 Dalmatians, Sword in the Stone, Jungle Book, Aristocats, Robin Hood, Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and The Rescuers, but he was also a co-producer on The Fox and the Hound, and he was an animator or animation director or directing animator on Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty. So he has a lot of important influence in terms of classic era Disney.
Yeah, for sure.
But the main reason that sort of you'd really look at The Jungle Book as being quite an important film in terms of the Disney canon is because it was the last film to ever be produced by Walt Disney himself.
No.
Because he ultimately passed away during its production. Which is always one of those things where you just go, it's odd.
It's a fun film as well. It has a nice bit of atmosphere to it, especially during the beginning and I guess it's a little bit silly to try and summarise or give you the conceit, but it's all about the man cub Mowgli trying to make his way in a non-man cub's world, and he'll meet a giant bear who really should be skinning him alive, and also like a panther who should be doing likewise, but no, it's the tiger that's in the wrong this time around. Bloody propaganda bullshit.
Particularly actually when you look at the original Jungle Book, because it's a lot more complicated than what we ultimately end up with here. This is a very Disneyfied retelling of the story. So, I mean, ultimately, the way that the Jungle Book got started was that after The Sword and Stone was released, storyman Bill Peet claimed to Walt Disney that the animation department thought that they could do more interesting animal characters, and suggested that the Jungle Book would be a good use for the studio's next film. Disney agreed, and Pete created an original treatment with little supervision, as he had done for 101 Dalmatians, Sword and Stone. However, after the reaction to Sword and the Stone had been a bit, crap, Disney decided to become more involved in the story than he had been for the other films. His nephew, Roy Disney, said that he certainly influenced everything about it with Jungle Book. He obviously got hooked on the jungle and the characters that lived there. Pete, I think, originally decided to follow the dramatic, dark and sinister tone of Kipling's original book, and it's all about the struggles between animals and man, but the film's writers decided to make it much more straightforward, because the novel's very episodic. Mowgli goes back and forth from the jungle to the man village, and it's got a much more complicated relationship with man, the original books do. And so Pete felt that they needed to sort of change that up a little bit. So they created two characters for the story. One is a human girl, who we will see right at the end of the film. And then one of arguably the best characters in the film, King Louie, the King of the Monkeys.
He wasn't in the original book?
No, he actually was not. There was a sort of version of Louie in a way, because in the second Jungle Book, which is sort of the Jungle Book is split up into multiple books, where you find like gold and jewels in a sort of ruins, which I think the monkeys may or may not drag him to. It's complicated how it happens. But yeah, Louis was not in the original book. They created him for the film. But yeah, Disney wasn't very happy with the darkness of it and insisted on script changes. Pete refused, and after a long argument, Pete then left the Disney studio in 1964.
You don't say no to Walt Disney. Walt always gets his way.
Exactly. So Disney then signed Larry Clemens as the new writer, and basically gave Clemens a copy of the original book and told him the first thing I want you to do is not to read it. Clemens still looked at it and thought it was too disjointed and without continuity to actually put into a script. So they decided to sort of change it up a little bit and go further with that. Got rid of most of Bill Pete's work and effectively started anew, because Disney felt that the story should be kept simple and the characters should drive the story. They added in more gags, more emotions, and ultimately that is how we ended up with what we got. The script also tried to incorporate how the voice actors moulded their characters and interacted with each other to, I think, make it more appealing and interesting. And I think that is a really interesting sort of process for how it got to this point. If I recall correctly, actually, the Jungle Book has been dubbed by quite a few people to be one of their favourite Disney films of all time.
Oh, yeah.
I seem to recall there was a list that was on TV a couple of years ago now, which either went through the most loved Disney songs or the most loved Disney films, and I'm pretty sure that the Jungle Book came up on top of that one, which at the time made me just go, really? That's the most beloved one? But I can sort of see where some of it's coming from, because there are some proper classic songs in here from the absolute gems that are the Sherman Brothers, who just amazing guys behind some of the most iconic songs of this era of Disney. And for that, yeah, you just gotta love it.
Bagheera, I think, was one of my favourite early Disney characters, because, yeah, he does put up with a lot from, like, Baloo and whatnot, but he was the one to stick his neck out for Mowgli to begin with, you know?
Oh, definitely. Akela is a very, very important wolf in the story of the Jungle Book.
Well, I was talking about Bagheera here, mate. You need to listen with ears.
It's because they sound so similar.
You hear what you want to hear. Wolves, panthers, the same bloody thing.
But yeah, I have to say, so obviously most of my knowledge before I actually ended up reading the Jungle Book was of this film, and so it was really interesting going back and reading the original collection of stories by Rudyard Kipling.
I'd imagine, yeah.
So pretty much all of the key characters are there, but the major thing is that there's all the stuff to do with abandonment and fostering, which echoed Kipling's own childhood through the life of Mowgli. There's also a whole bunch of characters that never made it into the film. So you've got one called Rikki Tikki Tavi, who was a valiant young mongoose who appears throughout the story. And actually, so a surprising number of the Jungle Book stories are not about Mowgli. Like, there's a whole bunch of other characters. So yeah, Rikki Tikki Tavi, the White Seal, and so on and so forth. But also some of the key elements of Mowgli's story are remarkably different to what we actually see here, because obviously we will eventually see Shere Khan, but Shere Khan is not depicted in the same way. So while he is sort of a terrifying force, he is also kind of lame and blind in one eye, and ultimately ends up getting completely murdered by Mowgli and I believe the elephants. And it's just like, oh, okay, that's a thing. That's dark.
Shere Khan, definitely one of the greatest early Disney villains for me.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, the other thing... Oh, no, it's not the elephants, it's the buffaloes that murder Shere Khan, which is delightful. But yes, Mowgli also uses the elephants to completely destroy the man village because they're assholes. And it's just like, oh god, we've gone super dark. There's quite a lot of that. It's also slightly racist, is the original Jungle Book, when it talks about the people from India. And it's just like, oh god, you're going there, Kipling, you're going there.
Yeah, well, colonialism, etc., etc. What's Lord Hiss from Robin Hood doing here?
You're very correct, but obviously this is Car the snake, versed delightfully by Sterling Holloway, who most people would recognise as being the voice of Car and Winnie the Pooh, and also I'm pretty sure, the delight that was Hiss in Robin Hood. Although, actually, I'm looking it up on his Wikipedia page. It doesn't appear. Which I'm just looking at and just going, that can't be right. Surely, I need to make sure that this is correct and we're not just going completely insane.
Ugh, I can't believe I have to bring this up, but Car, great character. How many people had a fucking sexual awakening because of this deviant?
So yeah, we are actually both wrong. So while Car sounds remarkably like Sterling Holloway, he was actually voiced by a gentleman called Terry Thomas.
Wait, Car sounds like Sterling Holloway?
No, Car is Sterling Holloway. Sir Hiss in Robin Hood was Terry Thomas.
Yeah, I think Lord Hiss or Sir Hiss was a little bit softer overall.
Yes, did sound very similar, but they are different people, surprisingly. It's one of those things where you just go, what?
So yeah, sidestepping that thing I said earlier, the jungle's a dangerous place, and Mowgli's gonna have to wise up, because Bagheera's not always gonna be around to save him, and,
Seriously, Mowgli would get screwed over were it not for Bagheera, because Bagheera keeps his eye out on Mowgli so much. Something else that actually I feel is quite a funny thing is that the car that we get here is very different to the car of the book, because the car of the book is sort of this absolutely gigantic snake. He's a terrifying force in the jungle. But because the whole thing of the Jungle Book that is repeated time and time again is about the idea of voices of the forest and each animal having their own voice, and there's a particular phrase or law of the jungle that basically requires if somebody knows this line or whatever of another creature, then that allows them to effectively bond and know that they're not going to kind of take over each other. And Car ultimately becomes Mowgli's ally in this situation, which I think involves like a temple and treasure and the humans and stuff, or it might be the monkeys. It's one of the two, probably the monkeys. Car actually comes in and saves the day.
Huh, how about that?
Yeah, it's really strange to then have Car ultimately be a bit villain in this film. It is really bizarre that they made that change, but hey, that's what they decided to go with. And then we have the delight that is the elephants and Colonel Harthy.
I gotta say, I think I prefer the Dawn Report to the Morning Patrol, or whatever the fuck that re-added in song for the Lion King was.
It's the Morning Report.
I think I got them mixed up. Can you blame me, though?
I mean, it's very true. They're both to do with stuff in the morning, and they're both slightly odd songs within their respective movies. But yeah, The Morning Report is definitely much more successful in the stage show of The Lion King than it was in the when it was re-added into I think it was the Diamond Edition of The Lion King, because it wasn't a great rendition, largely because Rowan Atkinson can't really properly sing, and also they didn't actually get a proper voice double for Simba, so he just completely changes voices midway through the film and changes back midway through the film. So it's a really, really weird one.
So give us a bit of voice acting trivia, mate. Let's go for the main cast.
So Mowgli is voiced by Bruce Reitherman, who is actually the son of director Wolfgang Reitherman.
Ah.
But he also actually ended up voicing Christopher Robin in Winnie Pooh and the Honey Tree, which is one of the classic Winnie the Pooh films, and was included as a segment in The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I didn't notice that.
He didn't really do many roles, but he effectively decided to become a filmmaker when he got into his adult age, and while he's not really been in anything that done anything that anybody would really notice, I think he mostly does like nature shows and all that sort of stuff. So fair dues to him. Then you have Sebastian Cabot, or Cabo, as Bagheera.
Wonderful.
Excellent voice, who most people would recognise as being the Gentleman's Gentleman Giles French in CBS sitcom Family Affair, but also he did a lot of stuff for Disney. So he was the narrator and Sir Ector in The Sword and the Stone, Bagheera in The Jungle Book, but his longest starring role came through the Winnie the Pooh series, where he narrated a lot of the films. He was the key narrator of the Winnie the Pooh films, which is great and adorable. Although The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh was his final film role.
Oh, now you just retroactively made one of my favourite Disney films sad.
I know, sorry. Then Colonel Harthy is voiced by J. Pat O'Malley, who we probably wouldn't necessarily recognise a whole lot of.
Okay, move on.
But he did appear on Broadway a couple of times in a few kind of big things. Whilst we're also around here, you've got Verna Felton as Colonel Harthy's wife. Now, Verna Felton looks familiar, and that is because she is the voice of Pearl Slaghoople, Fred Flintstone's mother-in-law in The Flintstones.
Mm-hmm.
And she has also been in many Disney things, particularly the Fairy Godmother in Cinderella.
Hey.
The Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland.
Wonderful.
Aunt Sarah in Lady and the Tramp. Flora and the Queen in Sleeping Beauty.
Very nice.
And she was also the elephant matriarch and Mrs. Jumbo, Dumbo's mother in Dumbo.
Ah, typecast.
Yes, very much went for the motherly role. But yeah, so she did a lot of stuff for Disney over the years, which is great. And then, last but not least, you have Clint Howard, who voices Colonel Harthy's son, Junior.
Oh.
Clint Howard, this is actually going to be quite a fun little tie-in here. So Clint Howard was the younger brother of Ron Howard.
Aye.
Now, Ron Howard should be familiar to a lot of people because he's directed a number of very, very big films. Some perhaps less good than others.
You shit-talk live-action Grinch and I'm ending this call.
Well, no, because I'm mostly saying that he was the director for Solo, which obviously kind of tanked a little bit. And he also did the Da Vinci Code series as well, I believe. Yes, he did. So he has done some good stuff, but some other less good stuff.
Okay.
So that's quite a nice little tie-in that it's the younger brother of director. I don't know whether he did a huge amount of stuff. He also actually voiced Roo in some of those early Disney Winnie the Pooh things.
Yeah, I can definitely hear it.
Yes, and he then went on to do, I think, quite a lot of work with his brother, starring in most of those films as well. So that's quite nice when you've got brothers working together.
Nepotism. Lovely.
Yes, but hey, families got to stick together, you know?
I know. I would not backtalk a panther, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Especially if it's a talking panther.
I know, it's just like one of those things that you do not do, and oh my god, is that the first Disney book we've ever seen?
Richie, you don't have to call attention to these things, mate.
Yes, we do, because it's slightly disturbing that somebody obviously had to spend a while drawing that.
Well, there's been worse than Disney, let me assure you. Is this where Baloo comes in? Like, on a bridge and whatnot? Which is quite weird, considering who Baloo's voice actor plays in Robin Hood.
Yes, I mean, I don't know if he comes exactly on the bridge, but he's basically coming up right now, and obviously, you know, since he is appearing very shortly, we can just point out that the delight that is Baloo is voiced by the amazing Phil Harris.
Oh, just brilliant.
I know, who did a number of very iconic roles in Disney. Obviously, Baloo, he was Thomas O'Malley in The Aristocats, and then the brilliant Little John in Robin Hood.
Very much so.
Which is obviously quite funny, because obviously Little John, basically Baloo, but brown and with clothes.
Well, you know what they say about reuse animation in this era of Disney, mate.
Yeah, reuse animation, reuse assets as well. Totally fair, to be honest.
It's funny because in the modern day, and I think for like Jungle Book 2, John Goodman took over Phil Harris's role.
I believe you are probably right, yes. I'm just going to double check that Factamundo.
I know that by heart, mate. It's engraved in there. Like Ven and Roxas just chilling in Sora's heart.
Oh, there is that delight. And you are correct, yes, it is John Goodman. But actually what is also funny, because, you know, obviously we've had conversations about Kingdom Hearts today, including what you just said there, that in The Jungle Book 2, Mowgli was played by Haley Joel Osment, aka the voice of Sora.
Yes, he was, yeah, and in another less than good film, he, Haley Joel, that is, also plays Esmeralda and Phoebus' son.
Yeah. Ew.
But while we're on the Kingdom Hearts subject, no, Richie, I'm taking over from you here. Originally, Jungle Book was going to be in Birth by Sleep, but for whatever reasons, maybe the estate of Louis' voice actor, like his wife, didn't really want his voice used or his likeness or whatever. I guess it was taken her.
Yeah, there was something or other that caused it to not happen. It might have been rights with the Rudyard Kipling estate, it might have been that. God only knows, but we didn't end up with it, and part of me is okay with that, but then also part of me is just like, oh, come on, you could have just done it, but hey, oh well. We are about to get one of the most iconic Disney songs of all time. Lovely Bare Necessities, it's phenomenal.
Jeez.
Yeah, but just briefly, the other fun little tie-in of voice actor trivia is that in Jungle Book 2, Jim Cummings voices Car and Colonel Harthy, but obviously the fact of voicing Car means that in both instances, the voice of Winnie the Pooh and Car were the same person in both iterations of the character.
That's great.
Which is like, yes, come on!
Can you fight like a bear, Richie? Can you do drunk panda style?
No, I definitely cannot. But hey, that's fine. I'd rather not necessarily fight like a bear, because I think I'd probably get my ass handed to me.
Possibly. I love Baloo and Bagheera's broship throughout this movie. Like, Baloo is the fool and Bagheera is obviously the straight man, and they just work so well off each other.
Oh god, it's just amazing, and just it's really effective. It's probably one of the things that they sort of didn't really properly match in the 2016 live action remake. directed and produced by Jon Favreau. I mean, I have many issues with that live-action CGI remake, because live-action remake, the kids' live-action, everything else is freaking CGI. Yeah, I don't think they really got that relationship down. And also, while Bill Murray as Baloo and Ben Kingsley as Bagheera do an excellent job, there's not quite the same level of relationship as we get here. Like, there seems like a proper love between Phil Harris and Sebastian Cabot.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it just works so effectively, whereas Murray and Kingsley seem quite separate. But also, I think the way they did the characters in that were also not great.
The characters in this film are, like, really likeable, or at least engaging, you know. This is one of the more, like, lively and active of the classic Disney films, I think.
Definitely. And I think also the whole jungle setting really does make it stand out amongst most other Disney films, because a lot of, obviously, Disney is set in, like, fantasy towns and all that jazz. So you've just got a lot of greenery here that you wouldn't normally get. And that's probably, in a way, why The Lion King stood out so much in the Disney Renaissance.
Yeah, and, you know, Tarzan as well.
Yeah, they just stand out because most stuff is more town-based, but oh my god, the bare necessities!
It would be on my top 10 of Disney songs, man. I don't know about you.
I don't know whether it would quite make top 10, but it's definitely one of the most iconic, and it is just really, really incredible.
You know what's funny? When I think of the bare necessities, I don't actually think of the Jungle Book. Do you know what I think of, mate?
I don't know.
I think of the enjoyable but probably not very long-lived TV show Jungle Cubs.
Oh, yes. I do remember that, because it was the theme song, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, mate.
Excellent. Actually, what's quite interesting with the bare necessities is it was written for an earlier draft of the movie that was never produced, and while the Sherman Brothers would go on to write other songs for the film, this was the one that they kept from the previous version. It stayed, and then it does actually get a reprise at the end of the film, sung by Sebastian Cabot and Phil Harris, which is great. The song was also apparently sung by Louis Armstrong at one point or another.
What, you mean as like a cover and whatnot?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
And actually, there's quite a few fun little facts in other media of this being brought up. So, in 1969, Alvin and the Chipmunks recorded it for their album The Chipmunks Go to the Movies.
Of course they did.
Of course they did. In 1988, the song was hummed by Siobhan E. McCafferty's character in the Freddy's Nightmares episode Judy Miller Come On Down. In 1991, the song was covered by Harry Connick Jr. for Simply Mad About the Mouse, an album and a TV special. In 1991, the Bare Necessities Megamix was produced by Nigel Wright under the name of the UK Mixmasters, reaching number 14 in the UK Jungles chart. Jungles chart? Singles chart. Only 14, but still.
Well, isn't jungle a genre of music?
Probably, I don't really know, but it's 14 in the UK Singles chart.
Okay, there we go then.
Obviously, it appears in the Jungle Book 2 a couple of times, which obviously. 2005, Julie Andrews chose to perform it for her album Julie Andrews Selects Her Favourite Disney Songs.
Ah, bless her.
Titus Burgess performed the song for the BBC radio special BBC 2 Celebrates the Music of Disney. Bowling for Soup recorded it for Disney's Disney Mania 3 album, which
oh lord,
actually, I did actually really like the Disney Mania albums. They were very, very, very noughties. But they did feature some really fun covers of Disney songs. They were quite excellent.
Oh, well, I'll take your word for it. So anyway, yeah, The Bare Necessities is about being a lazy piece of shit, basically.
Basically. And yes, it is. It's just iconic. Just so chill. And you're just like, yes, I can live with this.
And we should point out, it's not good because it's iconic. It's iconic because it's good.
Exactly. There's a reason why this song by Terry key son was kept from that original draft of the Jungle Book, because clearly, why the hell would you get rid of this song? It's just such a damn good one.
And we've talked about, like, the relationship between Baloo and Bagheera, but the relationship, like, father and son, or little brother, big brother sort of thing, between Mowgli and Baloo is also really heartwarming, and probably the backbone of the film itself.
Oh, definitely. And it's quite nice having that contrast between the father, son, and brother dynamic, because it shows what influences can have on you and how you react to some things where you might have more fun with your brother, but your brother might be more likely to get you into trouble than your father, who is definitely always got your best interests at heart. And even if they seem overly cruel or harsh at some times, or overly strict, they are doing it because they care and because they've made mistakes and they want to protect you from them. And I do love that we go from one absolute classic song into another, which is also an absolute classic that they ruined in the remake.
Oh, dude, I haven't seen the remake. Do you want to tell me a little bit about it?
So initially you're just like, oh, this could be potentially interesting, because obviously King Louis is voiced by Christopher Walken. Which were just like, oh, this could be interesting.
Interesting choice, yeah.
Yes, but they changed him from an orangutan into a Gigantopithecus, or Gigantopithecus, which is an extinct species of great ape. Largely because orangutans aren't actually native to India, so it doesn't really make sense for them to be there. But they ended up changing up the lyrics to I Want to Be Like You to fit the fact that they changed it. But the issue with that, I mean, the biggest issue really is that the live-action Jungle Book doesn't really know what it wants to be. It wants to pay homage to the fact that the original is a musical, but doesn't really want to be a musical. So it only really features bare necessities and I Want to Be Like You because most people will be pissed off if they weren't there. But doesn't really give them enough love, or they're not done well enough to actually make it make any sense. But yes, the change to the lyrics of I Want to Be Like You is in the last verse and last chorus. So it becomes, now you might think it's ridiculous that me, a Gigantopithecus, would ever dream I'd like to team with the likes of you, man cub, but together we'd have powers, all the jungle treasures ours. I got desire, you got the fire, but the dream I dream takes two. So ooh, 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 I want to be like you, ooh, ooh, I want to use that flame just the same you can do, ooh. Oh, how magnificous it would be a Gigantopithecus like me could learn to do like you humans do, and so on and so forth. And while it's fun, saying Gigantopithecus,
it flows well, yeah.
It does, but I don't know. I prefer having a little bit of the scat in there, the shubakapow, the ba-ba-da-ba-dow, and so on and so forth. I think it just works a little bit more, and it's just much more iconic. I mean, particularly, with Louis Prima's voice, who performs as King Louis, and obviously most people know him for just having an incredible voice and being known as the King of Swing.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just such an iconic scene. Like, so insanely iconic, and I love it.
This is almost why I want Jungle Book to be in Kingdom Hearts 3, because it's been rumoured, I don't know if it's true, but it's on the rumours list. So if we could have a bit of King Louis, again, maybe his estate will lighten up and we can have Sora dancing with the monkeys and whatnot, that'd be rad.
I would be interested to see how they worked it. I'm not sure I quite want Jungle Book for Kingdom Hearts 3. If only because Kingdom Hearts 3 very much seems, to me anyway, to be much more modern day Disney and looking forward in terms of that rather than looking back. And if you look at most of the film selection so far, they've been very contemporary Disney. So I feel like Jungle Book would be an odd one in that mix. However, if it is there, great, I'm down with it. But I feel that it would perhaps be better placed in a future Kingdom Hearts game once the Xehanort saga is over, and you've started with new characters and a new set of stories, because then I think it would be a nice one for that, like Kingdom Hearts 4, of introducing you into new worlds, because this would be very different to what we have experienced really before, apart from really Deep Jungle with Tarzan.
I agree. Yeah.
I think that would work better than Kingdom Hearts 3, largely because also the story is not as... I don't think it fits quite as well with everything that KH3 is going for.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. You gotta, like, figure in the tone of what movies you're adapting when they come in the timeline. Because even though it's not exclusively about Disney, the story, you still have to, like, match it to the tone of the game you're making, you know?
Exactly. It's why things like Frozen are sort of a perfect fit. Also, Big Hero 6, with it being a sequel to the actual original story. Toy Story is probably a little bit of an odd one, but it makes sense considering how long they have been trying to get that one in there.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, Monsters Inc. with all the monsters and screams, that all works out quite nicely. Tangled's Mother Gothel's quite a fitting, I think, villain for the sort of story they're telling. So I think the worlds that they've shown off so far work more fittingly than Jungle Book would, but still, just, I do love I Want to Be Like You. It's just so swinging.
It's fucking amazing, mate. It's just like the rhythm and the beat of it. Jungle music is a real thing of music, by the way, and it actually originated in the UK.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, jungle is the genre of electronic music derived from breakbeat hardcore that developed in England in the early 1990s as part of UK rave scenes. The style is characterized by fast tempos, 150 to 200 BPM, breakbeats, dub reggae bass lines, heavily syncopated percussive loops, samples, and synthesized effects. Long-pitched shifted snare rolls are common in old school jungle. Jungle was a predecessor to drum and bass, a well-known genre of electronic music.
Oh. So I wasn't entirely wrong by saying, the jungle charts, because they probably exist, but obviously Bare Necessities did not chart in there. Although it would have been hilarious had it done, just for the pure irony.
That shot back there of Baloo with the crazy eyes was reused in Robin Hood.
Of course it was, and also some of this dancing eventually got reused for Robin Hood, because of course it did.
So what's Louis' deal exactly? Because obviously we're talking over this and I can't get all the finer details.
So basically what he wants from Mowgli is the ability to use man's red fire or flower. Well, man's red flower, which is fire. He wants to become a man himself. And obviously he believes that the way of doing that is by making use of fire. He thinks that will make him into a man. Yeah, it's just like, no, mate, that's never gonna happen.
No.
But he's very, very fun. He's actually kind of terrifying in the remake, and he's not really comic relief. He's more this terrifying, gigantic ape that then tries to murder Mowgli as soon as the ruse is discovered.
Did you ever watch Tailspin, mate?
I did not, but I have seen it just here as a thing. Which, wasn't that like a plain jet-setting type thing with the Jungle Book characters or something?
Yes, it was, and, it had Louis in there. I think he, rented planes and whatnot. Shere Khan was an evil businessman. Baloo's character model was used for a character whose name I can't recall, but the kid character was actually referred to affectionately by Baloo's character as Little Britches, which is also the nickname for Mowgli.
Aw, that's adorable.
A rousing game of Pass the Human, I think you'll find.
Pass the human, but also murder everyone who is not Mowgli.
How long have these ruins been standing here, and then the king himself comes and breaks them apart?
Yeah, well, also I like how Baloo here is just like, yes, I'm going to tickle him so he dies.
Well, that's karma for you, I suppose. It's okay, they'll just fall around him, such is the physics of the Jungle Book. What consequences does this have for the rest of the story? Not very many, but it was entertaining all the same.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty much a lot of the original Jungle Book anyway, it's very episodic. A lot of things happen. So there is a sequence with the monkeys stealing Mowgli away. Because effectively the way it works, I believe, is that the monkeys are seen as being sort of the underclass of the jungle because they're not very cultured and they're very rude and everyone else follows the laws of the jungle, but the monkeys don't. And so everyone's just like, feck off, you bastards.
Could do without a monkey, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Can't not hear the Winnie the Pooh narrator now.
I know. I will say, as much as, I have many issues with the 2016 version of The Jungle Book, Ben Kingsley's Bagheera is amazing. It's just because Ben Kingsley also has just one of those really amazing voices.
Oh, yeah. You can't get the music out of your head. That's what's known as a jam. A bop, if you will.
And, considering how much of a bop Necessities and Like Someone Like Me and so on and so forth are, slight sidestep, but The Jungle Book has been adapted many times. This is but one in a long run of them. So it's been adapted a few times in literature. There was a science fiction novel by Robert Heinlein called Stranger in a Strange Land, which was based on The Jungle Book. Neil Gaiman wrote The Graveyard Book, which was inspired by The Jungle Book. You had a piece of music called The Jungle Book Cycle, written by Australian composer Percy Grainger, consisting of quotes from the book, such as choral pieces and solos. French composer Charles Koechlin wrote several symphonic works inspired by the book. BBC Radio broadcast an adaptation in 1994, which actually featured Eartha Kitt as Car. Like, oh my god, that's amazing.
Yzma from Emperor's New Groove.
Exactly. You also have various things adapted into, like, comics and so on and so forth. And then there's been many films. So you had the 1937 Elephant Boy, the Russian Mowgli, which was published as Adventures of Mowgli in the US. There was an animation which was released between 1967 and... Oh no, that was the Russian Mowgli, released between 1967 and 71. And combined into a single 96-minute feature film in 1973. There were made-for-TV cartoons, Rikki Tikki Tavi, The White Seal, and Mowgli's Brothers, all based off of particular books in the Jungle Book.
Okay.
And then you've got plenty of films. So there was Zoltan Korda's 1942 film, the 67 animation, which is what we're watching now, the 2016 remake. There was also a 1989 Japanese anime, Jungle Book Shonen Mowgli. And I believe that they also did a film adaptation of The Jungle Book in 1994, I want to say. And there is also going to be another version of The Jungle Book, not by Disney. Quite a few of those weren't by Disney, but there's one which is being directed by Andy Serkis, actually. And it's one of those weird ones because it was announced at pretty much the same time as Disney's Jon Favreau headed remake of the 1967 film, and it's sort of one of those moments of just going, wait, we're getting two Jungle Books. Originally they were going to come out in the same year, but then I think they realised, no, that's a pretty stupid idea to go with, because no, let's not do that.
Yeah, that sounds like brand confusion to me.
Yeah, so that, I think that one is due to come out relatively soon, actually. I'm going to double check.
Very interesting conversation between Baloo and Bagheera back there, veering on, like, I don't know, just the themes of adulthood, really, and having to make decisions and whatnot if you want to read into it and get a bit pretentious and so on.
Oh, definitely. So I've just double-checked, and the Andy Serkis Mowgli is due to come out in 2019. So originally it was going to come out in October 2016, but then they delayed it because of Disney's adaptation, and apparently it's going to be released on Netflix, which is going to be interesting. But it's also quite hilarious because both the Jon Favreau Jungle Book and the Andy Serkis Mowgli have both got like ridiculously star-studded casts.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jungle Book remake had Bill Murray as Baloo, Ben Kingsley as Bagheera, Idris Elba as Shere Khan, Lupita Nyong'o as Raksha, who was Mowgli's wolf adoptive mother, Christopher Walken as King Louie, and also had Jon Favreau in it as Fred a Pygmy Hog, and Sam Raimi, funnily enough, as Giant Squirrel, which is odd. And it also had, I don't know why I didn't say it, Scarlett Johansson as Car.
I was going to say, yeah, I thought you were missing someone.
Yeah, I thought I was as well. So then Mowgli has Christian Bale as Bagheera, Kate Blanchett as Car, Naomi Harris as Nisha. They've changed the name of the mother, that's not okay. Andy Serkis is voicing Baloo. Benedict Cumberbatch is Shere Khan. And then I don't really recognise the name of many of the other actors, though they have obviously all been in... Oh, I do recognise their faces. That's nice.
I think Benedict's a good pick for Shere Khan, because he was great at Smaug.
Oh, definitely. Honestly, I feel like Benedict Cumberbatch is going to do a better Shere Khan than Idris Elba did. Because, like, while Idris Elba is very good, he's an excellent actor, I don't know, there wasn't necessarily the right tone in his voice, I feel.
I didn't believe he was a tiger.
I didn't. That was the problem. He wasn't evil enough. Whereas Benedict Cumberbatch has got that sort of full-on posh voice. I mean, even when he uses an American accent, like, he can properly go full villain in his voice. Whereas Idris Elba, it never felt quite right to me.
How can the bear not catch up to him? Do you know how fast bears can run?
It's because he's running on his hind legs through a forest. If he was running like on all fours, Mowgli wouldn't stand a chance. He was making it easy for him.
I guess. Oh, what have you done now, you big grey fuck-up?
God's sake, man! Like, you're meant to look after the bloody kid, and you go and screw it all up and he goes running off. Like, for God's sake, man!
So roughly about now would be a terrible time for Mowgli to intercept Car again, or, knock on wood, Shere Khan.
Yeah, that would be really, really bad, wouldn't it? Like, we're totally not going to see any of them anytime shortly. Oh, look!
And you know what's great about this first appearance? We are 47 minutes into the film, and he's been mentioned up until this point, and we're only just now seeing him. That's how you build up an effective, threatening villain.
It is indeed. Although, as I said, he's much more of a proper villain here and much more terrifying here than he is in the actual original story. And oh look, it's Bambi's mother. He's going to go kill Bambi's mother. Oh my god, he's the hunter who killed Bambi's mother.
No, it was Shere Khan with a gun strapped to his back.
Yes, obviously, like, clearly.
They must have studied cats quite closely, because those are very, very clear cat mannerisms.
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, the original Shere Khan was depicted as being born with a crippled leg and derisively nicknamed Lungri by his mother. Lungri means the lame one. But despite that, he is quite arrogant and regards himself as the rightful lord of the jungle. In Mowgli's Brothers, which is like the sort of one of the first Mowgli stories in the Jungle Book, Shere Khan just fails to hunt human... Well, his failed attempt to hunt humans causes a human cub to stray from his parents, which ultimately then ends up with the wolves. And because he's absolutely furious at losing his kill, he swears that the boy will be his one day. And what Shere Khan then does is he infiltrates the wolf pack by promising the young wolves riches and rewards once Akela is disposed, because Akela is the one who basically protects Mowgli because he's the head of the wolf pack. And when the young wolves force Akela into missing his kill, the pack council meets to kill and replace him. So Shere Khan then tries to take over their hunting territory if they don't give him Mowgli, but Mowgli attacks Shere Khan and his allies with a burning branch and drives them away. Akela leaves the pack to become a lone hunter, and Mowgli goes to the human village, but swears that he will one day return with Shere Khan's skin, because obviously he's very not happy about being run out of his home, and also, by the pain that went to Akela, because Akela is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He also appeared in the story How Fear Came, which is set between the first and second halves of Mowgli's brothers, and sometime after Kaa's hunting, where he comes to drink from the river, just after having killed a human purely for sport, prompting Hathi the elephant to tell the story of why tigers, out of all animals in the jungle, are allowed to hunt humans for pleasure at certain times. But Mowgli's mostly a observer in that one. And then I believe it's in sort of the final story that Shere Khan is part of, Tiger. Mowgli's adopted by a lady called Mesua, and her husband learns human ways. And he knows that they've heard of a lame tiger which has a price on its head, but believe it is lame because it's the reincarnation of a moneylender who was injured in a riot. Mowgli's just like, ha, you're talking bull, and decides to... And so the village decide to put him to work herding buffalo. He then meets one of his wolf friends, Grey Brother, who tells him that Shere Khan is still planning to kill him. So Grey Brother forces the sort of runty character called Tabaki to tell him where and when Shere Khan is planning to strike, then kills Tabaki, and with the help of Akela, Grey Brother and Mowgli trap Shere Khan in a narrow canyon and incite the buffalo to stampede him to death, upon which he then returns, I think, to the Pride with Shere Khan's skin.
Nice.
And Mowgli then basically becomes the king of the jungle and is a terrifying force throughout the rest of his life.
Wow. Not the family-friendly ending I was expecting, honestly, but can we talk about how great of a villain Shere Khan is in this movie, Mo?
We can. I mean, to be fair, I don't really remember him all that well, to be fair. It's because I don't really remember the Jungle Book all that well, to be fair.
Philistine.
Hey, it's because where my memory sort of stops with it is probably after King Louis. Like, most of the end of the film, just, apart from maybe the real end of the film, I don't really remember all that much of it, although I do know that there are the vultures that are basically the beetles that we're going to see shortly.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, Shere Khan's pretty awesome. What do you think of him, mate?
I love him. He has an amazing voice, a fantastic presence. I mean, just here, like, nothing's threatening him. He's gathering all the intel. Like, if he went up against the elephant, yeah, he'd be trampled to death, but he's too smart to do that. So he's just playing it stealthily right now, and he will get that man cub eventually. Who needs a bulldozer when you've got a herd of elephants just trampling through the jungle?
Exactly.
So who voices Shere Khan, mate? Because that lustrous voice is doing things.
So, Shere Khan is here voiced by George Sanders, who was in many roles over his career. He won an Academy Award for the role of Addison DeWitt in All About Eve. He was King Richard the Lionheart in King Richard and the Crusaders. He was also Mr. Freeze in a two-part episode of Batman.
Yep, yes he was.
Just going to see if he was any other sort of major roles later on in his career that we Philistines who don't know older actors would recognise, and the answer to that is pretty much no. But it is always nice when you find out about these actors who had like really quite amazing careers in Hollywood throughout kind of like the 30s, 40s, 50s. And then they ended up in Disney films and have just become just iconic voices in loads of people's childhoods, even if they don't necessarily know who they are. Because it's one of those things where, like, I look at a lot of like the celebrities that we have these days that end up being put into films, and part of me is just like, great, I can see why you've done it. It's to try and get people to come in to see the film. It's a common tactic. But part of me wonders how iconic some of them will potentially be in many years' time. Will the same sort of thing happen 50 years from now, where people look back and then see these actors who were, some of them at the top of their careers, getting involved in Disney, but it sort of feels like it's less of a risk now than perhaps it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe not around now, because this was obviously Walt Disney's last film before he died. But, like, particularly when you're going through like, the dark ages of Disney, like, that must have been an interesting thing for actors to want to get involved in. And just being like, so they're kind of going down a hill, but it's still a very interesting and different thing, because even though Disney kind of started animation films, there really, from what I remember, weren't all that many, and there's definitely not many that have remained in the public consciousness for much of the 20th century, until you maybe get to like the 80s, 90s. Like, most animated films that most people remember are Disney, from kind of the late 30s all the way up to the 80s, 90s, where you start to get a few more people coming into the fray.
Tags, hypnotism, Vor, Shota, I guess. God damn it, Internet, what the fuck have you done to Car?
Honestly, I don't know, but Trust in Me is an excellent song, and I'm kind of annoyed that it's one of the ones that the 2060 remake basically removed.
Really? Like, can Scarlett Johansson not sing or something?
No, she can sing, and it's in the credits, and you can sort of hear the music for it during the scene with Car, but it's not in the film. It's part of that whole thing of the 2016 Jungle Book doesn't really want to be a musical, but feels obliged to include the two most iconic songs, but not really include any of the others because it's embarrassed that it's a musical. And it's just like, guys, seriously, make up your mind. What are you? Go with it. Like,
there's a lot of that insecurity with certain like adaptations and whatnot. And it's like, don't worry, you can do it. It's fine.
It's that whole thing of what often happens with a lot of things is that it's probably mostly companies that are worried about it, but sometimes directors of, I don't want to be embarrassed by my source material, like I want to make it better by taking out things that embarrass me, but sometimes those things are what make people love the original films, so why would you want to get rid of them? Just go into it, enjoy it, because that's what people loved, and that's why people will come to see your thing.
Yeah, exactly. Although we have here another example of why I think Shere Khan is such a great villain, because he oozes confidence and maybe even a bit of arrogance and whatnot, because like Car has been a really dangerous thing to Mowgli so far, but look at this guy right here, he doesn't care. It's so weird hearing Pooh's voice coming out of the snake. I honestly forgot they were voiced by the same person.
It is really weird. It's still one of those things with a lot of characters where you're just like, they're played by the same person. I mean, a prime example that I will always go to for that is Les Mis. That is a film where you've got Wolverine, the Gladiator, Catwoman, and Bellatrix Lestrange, Ali G, now Newt Scamander, and many others, all in the French Revolution singing. You're just like, wait, what? This is a thing that is happening? Okay.
You're looking forward to Fantastic Beasts 2, Mo?
I am, yes. I'm slightly less excited by it due to, the whole Johnny Depp thing, and also the fact of they seem very, very adamant about not really paying any attention to the fact that Dumbledore's gay. They've all actively come out and said that's not really going to be involved in this film, despite the fact that it's Dumbledore during the time when Grindelwald was about and they're meant to be, together, sort of.
Even before JK, said that Dumbledore was gay after the fact, it was still pretty obvious there was some homoerotic subtext.
Yeah, and it's just you've got the perfect opportunity to put that representation in rather than just saying it's a thing. And yet, from everything that they've said, obviously, we're recording this before the films come out. Ultimately, we might be pleasantly surprised. But it's kind of just you're saying this is the case, but they're not actually showing it in any way, shape or form. So just you're kind of being a bit of a dick there. It's you want to get the praise of the representation without actually putting in any of the work.
Oh yeah, that's a very common thing. Sadly.
It sucks.
Fuck you, Carr. You deserve every bit of this. Because, he didn't sell him out to Shere Khan, but only because Carr wanted to eat him himself.
Exactly.
Half of the animation cells from Mowgli are spent on him running away in this movie.
Basically, I mean, it's one of those things where, you look at it and you're just so, obviously in Snow White, which we literally just recorded not that long ago in terms of when we're recording this commentary.
You're giving away the magic!
Who cares? These guys are meant to be the Beatles. Snow White spends most of her movie doing pretty much not a lot, running away from things, cleaning. That is basically Snow White. Mowgli's thing is basically running away from things. That's all he really does throughout this film. So really, he's no better, so that's fine by me. At least there's a little bit of equality in terms of how characters are treated throughout early Disney, sort of.
What was the inspiration for making these guys the Beatles, exactly?
So I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that what was meant to happen was that they were going to have the Beatles voice these guys. They wanted to, so basically they wanted to, lighten them up. Obviously, this film also came out around the time of when the Beatlemania was still a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, he really wanted them to be there to sing the song, That's What Friends Are For. But John Lennon just refused to work on animated films in that period, and so ultimately that idea just ended up being completely discarded. That said, when they casted the Vultures, they did still bring in a British Invasion musician. So you had Chad Stewart of duo Chad and Jeremy, who voices... let's see, where is he? He voices Flaps, the Vulture.
Uh-huh.
So they did still bring in British music, but that didn't happen. There was also apparently going to be a nearsighted rhinoceros during this particular scene, with the rhino being called Rocky, who was to be voiced by Frank Fontaine, but Walt decided to cut the character because he felt that the film already had too much action with the monkeys and the vultures.
Poor Mowgli doesn't fit in anywhere, about to be taken out by some beetle expies. Truly, a fate worse than death.
But also, you just look at it, you're just they're just being asses, and then they're sort of not asses, and it's quite sweet, sort of. You'd think these vultures would be as mean as the vultures in Snow White, who are just yes, death, Whereas these guys are just yeah, it's alright, mate.
We don't need to eat after all, let's just let him go. I think I switched accents on the fly there, Jesus.
I think you sort of did, but to be honest, I can't really properly do a Liverpool accent. There's only certain words I can say in Liverpool. Was Liverpudlian.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. My accent work is awful sometimes. But yes, in terms of vultures, you have J. Pat O'Malley voices Colonel Harthy as Buzzy the Vulture. Chad Stewart, as I mentioned, is Flaps the Vulture. You have Lord Tim Hudson as Dizzy the Vulture, who was an English DJ in Los Angeles during the 60s. And then you have Digby Wolfe as Ziggy the Vulture.
Who's who, though? Like, he didn't put names to people exactly, or vultures.
As if I can bloomin' pinpoint which ones are which. Let me get a Google up.
It's fine, don't worry about it. Let's focus on the song instead.
It's like a proper quarter shop.
Barbershop Quartet, Richie.
Barbershop Quartet, there we go. Quarter shop, I bet, that's clearly where I was going on that one.
The Chepsy Palace of our times.
But yeah, it is quite it's a weird song to just randomly be in here, but it's very effective.
Yeah.
Right, so from the looks of things, if this order is correct on Disney Wikia, Buzzy's the bald one.
Obviously.
Flaps is the one whose hair completely covers his eyes.
Okay.
Ziggy's the blonde one. No, that's incorrect. Ziggy's the brunette one and Dizzy's the blonde one.
Okay.
I think.
I much prefer this gaggle of birds to the ones in Dumbo, I'm going to be honest.
Yes, they're distinctly less racist.
Distinctly. Completely, I think. They were literally fucking called Jim Crow, okay? That's not a mistake.
Yeah, that's one of those things we just look at and you just go, oh, that has not aged well.
Like, as a child, I was like, oh, these guys are really, really cool and what. I was like, and then like 10 years later, oh, jeez.
It's one of those things where you look back at some like classic Disney and you're just like, oh, you did that.
Yeah.
That's a little bit not okay.
But no, these guys are just fine. And then here comes Shere Khan with his baritone and whatnot, and the vultures are like, yeah, we may be the harbingers of death, but we're not going to fuck with him.
Yeah, it's just like, shit, run, fly, go kill the boy, it's fine, we don't care. Another
mark on Shere Khan's villain blackboard. Everyone is fucking terrified of him, and you know something's wrong when Mowgli's not, and he just has a really nice juxtaposition to the whole thing.
And I suppose in a way it's because at this point Mowgli hasn't really seen any of the danger or proper villainy of Shere Khan, which I think is potentially a little bit of a black mark against Shere Khan as a villain, because all we really know is what people have said, and while he's mentioned, you don't really see any of the impact of what he's done other than perhaps the fear of people. And part of me feels like maybe a little bit more showing and not telling about what Shere Khan has done might have made him even more terrifying than he ultimately is.
I would usually agree, but I think tell and not show works really well in his favour, and this countdown is the stuff of nightmares.
Oh yes.
You are fucking lucky Baloo decided to tell you, mate.
Very lucky.
Bears aren't really anything to fuck with, but up against like a tiger of Shere Khan's size, definitely probably unevenly matched.
Potentially. Also, I mean, at that point, that would definitely have drawn blood. Potentially have killed Baloo because, could have taken a proper bite out of his butt there. So that led to him bleeding out. But obviously, it's a cartoon, so that's not going to happen. But Baloo, for the love of God, actually put some damage in there.
I don't want to think about Baloo bleeding out, okay? Like, the Jungle Book origins are bloody enough as is.
It's very true.
Based Vulture Bros coming in for the assist. Let's see if he can fly, you ginger bitch. Oh, this is silly. K-word back there, by the way. You heard it. We all heard it.
The mistress of all evil!
Ah, man's flower, if you will.
Indeed, there is the red flower. And Mowgli is finally going to be able to use it.
Oh, Jesus. Reminds me a little bit of the finale of The Great Mouse Detective, actually, with how vicious Shere Khan is.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yes, go on, Mowgli, burn down everything.
Let's see you run from the fire. Nope, you're just bringing the fire with you. Oh, what a silly cat.
Also, that is the end of Shere Khan for the film.
I guess. Does he die? We don't know, but I guess he won't fuck with Mowgli again.
Well, you say that, he comes back in the sequel.
Fuck, I actually didn't know that.
Oh, sorry to spoil that bit.
No, I don't really care, honestly.
Yeah, the sequel wasn't very well received at all. But yeah, there is a sort of whole thing with Shere Khan in the sequel, and I would say it's a much more climactic finale for Shere Khan's story. And Mowgli's, to be fair. In fact, I probably would have perhaps preferred that to what we end up here with Shere Khan, because really that was a little bit pants to get rid of him.
A little bit anticlimactic, but it has Mowgli finally stepping up and doing stuff, and you have a heartfelt moment here, so...
It's true.
The story is about Mowgli and not Shere Khan at the end of the day.
This is very true, but you want to build up an evil villain, you need to give them a proper send-off.
Maybe that was the point. Like, all this talk about Shere Khan, and then just to have him, like, revealed to be a sort of coward at the end.
Yeah. But, yeah, I have complex feelings about that, but...
I see it from your point of view as well, certainly.
But also just like, what? Of course they're not going to kill Baloo off, like, for God's sake, man.
They have to repurpose his corpse for the next movie, of course, with redone animation.
Exactly! Like, seriously, and also, you're not going to kill him off. Like, we've already gotten rid of Shere Khan. This is not the type of Disney story where you kill off a hero right at the end. Like, I don't think there has ever been a Disney story where they've killed off a hero right at the end. I certainly can't think of one.
Baloo's just hamming it up at this point. Like, he knows. He just wants to hear Bagheera talk nice things about him.
Of course! I mean, why wouldn't you at this point? Because, I mean, like, Bagheera's been a bit of a knob, to be fair, to Baloo, just saying you're an awful influence and stuff, but it's just like, okay, actually, no, I do really like him. He is an awesome mate and an awesome friend. And it's just like, for God's sake, you made me think you were dead.
And you don't have a scratch on you, Baloo. That's really fucking weird to say you fought a tiger.
I know, and like he proper scratched you in the face.
And bit your bum. You should be bleeding out, as Richie would want, that vindictive prick. You ready for a reprise of Bare Necessities, mate?
Do you really need to ask that question?
No.
But yeah, the reprise of Bare Necessities is awesome.
Not quite done with the film yet. Mowgli has not fulfilled his destiny.
Well, part of his destiny, because, you know, the rest of his destiny is, you know, murdering all the people he's about to go and stay with, but still.
Don't know how they covered that in the next film.
They didn't, but the power of boners is incredibly strong for Mowgli.
Did you just say the power of boners is incredibly strong?
Yes, that is exactly what I said.
Wow, that's a line I'd expect out of me or Flame, not you.
Well, you see, I am full of surprises.
This is a lovely little song, but it's kind of, atypical given the rest of the songs in the film, but it's nice.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a weaker song in the soundtrack, but hey, it's there to be different and make Mowgli want to go to the man village.
Come to think of it, Mowgli actually had 2 dads, which is rare for a Disney film.
Yeah, that is very rare, especially in this era of Disney, practically unheard of. But I think because you had the argument of Raksha, even though I don't think she was really in this film at all, being his mother, it's kind of more 2 uncles than 2 dads. I think is how they probably would have pitched it anyway.
Well, they would have in that day and age.
Yeah, nowadays we're just like, oh my god, Mowgli's 2 dads, they're amazing. Which is probably for the best that we are at that point now, but back then, no, that was not a thing that was okay.
Nice, Mowgli, smooth, a great introduction. It's a really nice song, actually, all jokes aside.
Yeah, although obviously this character did not exist at all in the original Jungle Book. They made her so that they had a reason for Mowgli to go to the Man Village, because in the original, I think he does go there to seek protection from Shere Khan, and I think it's Mwesa or whatever her name is, takes him in because her son, I think, was murdered by Shere Khan, so she basically takes Mowgli in as her own, as her son returned, sort of thing. So that's his reasoning for going. Whereas here, no, it is literally the power of boners that gets him to go to the Man
Stop
Village.
saying the power of boners and sort your thoughts on the Jungle Book, please.
It's a very good, very cosy film with some great songs by the Sherman Brothers, a great look and feel to it. I wouldn't say it's one of my favourites in the grand scheme of things, because ultimately not really that much happens, but it is certainly a classic Disney film, and obviously very important because it was the last film that Walt Disney ever worked on himself.
I don't think the story is, all that great. I think it's the characters that sell the movie more than anything.
Yes.
Baloo, Bagheera, Shere Khan, the Vultures, Kaa, King Louie, etc. Really great cast of characters. And the songs are great. I don't think all of them are, top-notch and whatnot, but all of them are at least enjoyable. And yeah, I wouldn't say this is my favourite, Disney movie. There's far too much reused animation for one thing, but it's a really nice, comfortable film. And I just enjoy it, and I hope it eventually makes it into Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, it would be nice to see, but we will have to see whether that happens or not, or when that happens or not, because, we could be waiting many, 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 many years until that is the case, but still, it's nice that this will always be here for us to go back and watch should we ever wish to, and yes, just look for that by Necessities.
Oh yeah, come on, bring it on home so I can sign us off. And on that terrible scatting note, thanks for watching, or listening, I guess, and we'll see you next time for another HellfireComms Disneython Free Championship Edition EX Fighting Turbo commentary. See you then. Gotta get a better name for this fucking thing.